welcome to my channel. Today's video I'm going to be focusing on talking about paper. Now this is a 12 by 12 stack of paper from Die Cuts with a View, and the 12 by 12 paper is very good resource for making cards. A lot of the papers are not really suited for card making. They're better suited for scrapbooking, and how to tell the difference I want to talk about it a little bit right now. So first let me show you some of the paper that's in here. It's really a lot of different styles of paper. There's diagonals and horizontals, vertical patterns, all over patterns. There's florals in here, and there's a lot of variation that you can get in a paper pack. Most of them, the papers are arranged according to the color family, and you'll sometimes get the same pattern. This is all the black and white that's in the back. You'll see the same pattern but in multiple colors sometimes, and this gives you a lot more options that you can use. And sometimes the papers are put together in themes, like the yearly pack will have, like, starting off with New Year's and Mother's Day and florals and springs, and then on into falls and Christmas and Halloween and all of that stuff. But how to decide what kind of paper that you have here? So I pulled out a couple of sheets, and this is a very good style of pattern for card making because it's all over smaller motif. You can cut this up using something like the one sheet wonder, and you can get quite a lot of cards out of this. And this paper is the pattern is a repeating pattern, but it's much larger. So you could still use this for card making, but you wouldn't get the full effect of the motif. This one is a very large motif in the center of the paper, and this would not really bring the best to the card making, but it'd be very good if you wanted to have a tone on tone, just paper in the background, but you would not be able to see what the true motif is when you cut it down to card size. This one is definitely more suited for scrapbooking. And this style of paper is a border print. It has a lot of potential for a scrapbook sheet, but when you try to cut it up in a card, let me bring a card size. This is the standard card size, and you try to cut it up here, if you were trying to maximize the paper, then you would lose a lot of the tree, and it's way up on the page, and it really doesn't look very well. So you get this cut across the bottom here, and then what would you do when you got here? You would just got the little leaves and a bunch of this, and then you'd have that at the top. So this really would not be a good paper to use if you wanted to maximize your paper, but this might be just perfect if you just wanted to have this border. For example, if you move this up and cut it like around this area, this length, then you can get a little bit of the green, all of the motif, the border, and a little bit of the plaid. But you would then get a large panel of plaid and another smaller panel of green, which you could of course use in something else. Another example would be a motif. So they have a motif here and a motif there on all over plaid. So if you wanted to focus on having this motif in your card design, you could cut it here, and then you'd have to cut it there, and then you have all of this other paper that you could use in another project. Now this is an example of a paper that is best suited for scrapbooking. And here we have another variation on a border print, but this time the motif is in the lower corner. So if you wanted to, you could cut it and get this motif in here and cut these, and then you would get just a border print, and then you have all of this pattern here that you could use as a background. So even though it looks like this is not suitable for card making, it actually really is. And to illustrate this type of paper, I have this card that I made, which was a similar, I only had the one sheet of this paper, and I made this card design from that. So where this trees is, this is where this lower corner was. And of course, then I got all of this dotted paper at the end. So I'm going to show you how to make this card, but because it only had the one motif in the corner, when you cut the other pieces, this is what I got with. So this is what I ended up with. So I don't have the wonderful flower here, but I still have the doily and the tape measure. But I'm still going to show you how I can simulate this look, but starting with this. Because of the placement of this motif, I know that I'm going to be able to get 6 full panels out of this sheet of paper. Because this is paper and not cardstock, I had to bring in my large Fiskars cutter because my other one would just shred the end of the paper. So the first cut I need to do is make this cut at 5 1/4. This is a little bit more than I need, but I want to be sure that I cleared the top of that tree. So I'll slide this to 5 1/4 and I have to make sure I get a straight cut. Lock that down. Is it straight? And straight across. Now I'm going to get another cut 5 1/4, but I'm going to turn the paper so that I have an even edge to work from. And this I know I only need 5 because this is going to be front of a card panel, so I just need 5. And I have this strip here. So I'm going to turn this and I'm going to get this at 3 3/4. Do it here. And another small strip. Don't throw that away, of course. And now this panel, I'm going to make sure that I get, turn it this way, the 3 3/4 and see how far over that gets me. I get almost all of that tree. Or I could get all of the tree and cut from this side. And I think that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to start cutting from the other side. So here's 3 3/4. Make sure it's flush. And another run. Now I'm going to turn it so that I get as much of that tree as possible. No. And cut from this side. 3 3/4. Okay, and another strip, which I probably can't use because it looks like part of a base. So there we are, 6 panels. And these can be used in a card also as just enhancement strips. Okay, let me move this big monster out of the way and put a card together for you. After I cut the 12 by 12 paper, I got enough of that to make 10 cards. It's going to be 6 cards all over panels, 3 with just a large panel and 1 or maybe 2 strip. After I cut up the paper, then I came up with this design to do the card. This is a rough outline. I've just took some colors and tried to replicate the colors that were in the pattern paper and just put the same colors on the white, this is copy paper, to give the impression of what the final card is going to look like. And that is the final card. So I have used the color layering squirrel by Hero Arts, and there is a video on my channel which I will link below, which goes more in depth on how to use the color layering. It's really very easy and simple, and the results are really very nice. And this is also, the squirrel in the nut is stacked die cuts because I wanted to give it a little bit of extra dimension. And I just quickly created a tree here from a Stampin' Up! Tree Builder punch. So I'm going to just go through and make the 10 cards, and it's really simple to follow along with. To make this card, I'm going to need the Hero Arts color layering squirrel, and it also has matching dies available. I'm going to need the Stampin' Up! Sprinkles of Life, and Acorny Thank You, and also the Stampin' Up! Something to Celebrate. I also need the Stampin' Up! Tree Builder punch and the Acorn punch. I'll also need a brown marker. This is a vintage photo distress marker. I'm going to do the acorns first, and the acorns, I'm going to punch them out of the mat for the front of the card to save paper. There is a trick I want to show you with using the acorn builder punch. you'll see that the full acorn and the top are together on the punch, but if you use this punch, you can help you line up the stamp. So let's just open this real quick, and this is just a piece of plain white paper, and I'm just going to punch it out. And now I'm going to take this and bring in my MISTI tool, and I'm going to use the negative space to help me line up where the stamp's going to punch. So here's the bottom. You just push it right in to the hole and it'll pop right in. And then the top, same thing. And you could probably do this trick with most of the builder punches, the bird builder, etc. So now just close the door and transfer it to the door. And in this case, I'm going to pop the punches back in so that you can see that you can also do this with the punches. Okay, and in you go. I'm going to grab the brown. And here we go. Oops. I think I flipped it upside down. Yes, I did. No, I didn't. I got confused. Sorry. Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. That was right. All right. Now I could have stamped it better, but I panicked. Sorry. And there I have perfectly lined up for that. Now I'm going to turn this around and use the other side. And I might need to trim this paper for it to reach inside the punch. I'm going to move this paper a little bit. There. Okay. Now I'll cover that ink so I don't have an issue. Now bring in my punch, and I'm going to have to trim this. Scissors. And just punch it out. It lines right up perfectly. Very easy to do. Do not be intimidated by the punches. There we go. Okay. All right then, here we go. So I already have my stamps that I need on my door, and I'm going to be switching the paper around a lot, but it'll be fine. Okay, so first the acorn. Okay. Also, I'm going to need, when I go to punch, I'm not going to do it right now. Where's the punch? You can see that it will line up perfectly. I'm also going to punch out 3 in total of the acorns, and I'm also going to punch the tree out of this back, and you'll see that a bit later. All right, now I'm going to move on to the squirrel. To do the color layering squirrel, I've already put the different pieces on my door where I need them to be, and I'm going to use the paper to get 2 squirrel out at once and also 2 of the sentiment. So I'm going to start with the outline of the squirrel, because with this particular stamp it was easier for me to do it with the outline rather than start with the all over, but you can do whichever one you think is going to work for you and it'll be fine. So I have my colors in order that I need them, from light to dark, and that when you're doing color layering, if you set your inks up ahead of time, it's a lot easier and you don't have to worry about getting confused. So I'm going to ink up this little guy, and I'm going to give him 2 presses because I want a really solid brown, and my ink pad is just a little dry. Now that I have that, I'm going to flip it around and get another squirrel there. Okay, now I'm going to slide this up to get the second part of the squirrel. Now, as I mentioned, there is going to be a link which goes into more detail on how to do the color layering on my channel. I'm going to go through and do all of these now. Okay, now that is all of the little squirrels done, and now I need to go through and die cut. So I have the die cut for the squirrel, and I'll just line it up, and I'll probably tape it so it doesn't move with a little bit of my purple tape. And for the sentiment, I have a die cut which fits that too. Okay, I'm going to run all of this through the die cut machine, and I'm also going to get all of my punches done. Be right with you. All right, that's the finished cards. After I had everything stacked up, I started wondering how can I bring a little bit of shine to the front of the card, and I remembered that the punch has a little apple on it. So I got a piece of red glimmer paper and I punched out some little apples and put it on the card. So what we talked about today was how to choose which paper is good for card making and which is good for scrapbooking. I went over how to take and cut a 12 by 12 sheet of paper in a way to maximize your cards. So I got 10 cards out of that one sheet, 6 of all over panel, and 4 additional cards using the strips. So there was no waste. I also showed how to take a motif and replicate it in a matching design so that you can get a cohesive set of cards. Thanks for watching this video. Please subscribe to my channel. I'm also going to make another video showing how to make this card here, which I mentioned at the start of this video. Take care, everyone, and have a great day.